Well, it's almost a typology of sorts, of what seems to be playing itself out with the amendment of the Constitution. Because there are those who thought that the least quarters where they expected this call for referendum is the NBA. But the NBA stands up and says, well, there's no way that the National Assembly can get the views of every Nigerian, 360 public hearings. They don't see it working, and so they think we need a referendum.
I don't think it's just 360 public hearings. They're going to do 360 public hearings from the House of Rep. They're going to do other public hearings from the Senate. Then there will also be a debate within the National Assembly, collect the views, send it to the states, which is the other, and the states' houses of assembly are also expected to do their own hearings. And therefore, before they now pass anything that is sent to them and brings back to, the Constitution stipulates that at least 24 states will have to agree before any amendment is done. I think the real problem we have with the NBA is that it's not that nobody wants what they are saying. Actually, it's very good to subject things to a referendum. That is not a problem. I think the real problem we have is that we just have no legal basis to do it. And because you have a parliament that is based on a law and based on a particular constitution, and there's no provision within the constitution to do anything else. So maybe what ought to be done, which we will advise the NBA to do, is bring an amendment to this constitution to subject things to referendum for the next amendment.
So this one,
it can never be for this one.
Hasn't the NBA done its own submission already?
Yeah, if they have done so, then that's all well and good. If it passes this test now, then that means that going forward, if we now have to do any other one, which I think that ultimately we will have to do, but everybody has his own view. My own view is very simple. I don't think the problem is the letter of the Constitution. I don't think it's what is written in the Constitution. Our real problem has always been that the Constitution is very clear on what you do, and people will always find a reason not to do that. So all that you see that we do is to tweak it in certain ways to prevent you from having that leeway to not implement the Constitution as is written.
No, but
because the Constitution is written actually for reasonable people to act in a reasonable manner. But if you ask yourself, check every aspect of the Constitution that we have amended to date. First of all, let's take the ones where we said that we're going to limit the time for litigation. The law is very clear. You can do litigation. But we now found situations where you now get into court and you're stretched endlessly, and somebody's term will end. A court case lasted 3 years and 6 months, for Christ's sake. So how would, I'm sure the people who wrote the Constitution never envisaged that a lawyer will say, okay, I will bring 1,000 witnesses and take one every day. And it takes 3 years to go through. Meanwhile, somebody is sitting there in the office enjoying fruits of what he did not labor for. And so we just had to now say, no, if this is being exploited in this way, let's block it. You will not blame the Constitution now. So now we say, okay, we'll put a limit to it. And everybody say, oh, no, why will you put a limit? Because... And
now the limit, too, has also been exploited.
Precisely.
Also negatively as well.
So at any point, we think that it's not really the letters. I think it's the spirit.
No, but even looking at it, I mean, in terms of the amendment process and what you intend to do to even carry everybody along, it sounds like a very laborious process. I mean, first of all, you intend to hold as many hearings as you can have and then take the views of all the people. First of all, if you look at the number of people who have attended public hearings so far since this Constitution amendment opened the hearing for it, it seems the number 2 is also unprecedented. So a host of people, or many more people, are showing a lot of interest in what is going to be written in their Constitution. The question will be, how do you intend to take all of these people's views on board, synthesize it, and also be able to put it finally when it comes to the amendment? Are you not looking at a very long process, maybe of about 5 years?
No,
if
it's
not
not
more?
up to 5 years.
Are you sure?
It's a laborious process, quite all right. But then we have teams of people, we have experts, we have consultants who will synthesize all the memoranda and all the things that people submit. When we do I've already done one. I did one sometime in August. And
That's a public hearing, right?
No, I did a town hall meeting and stated out to them this area, that area, and they all said no or yes, depending on what we present to them.
Sorry to
Yes.
come in, but did you ask them before you stated the areas, or you just brought out the areas you think the people want?
Yeah, now those areas were areas that were part of what we got as the memoranda, and we now said, let's look at it. Matters of state creation, matters of whether you can have local state police or not, matters of the local government autonomy, state of all that nature. Yes, there are so many things, but
most, if you look at it, the opinion out there is as though the structure of the federation is at the center of the desires of almost all Nigerians. Is
Precisely.
it possible that the National Assembly might miss out on this desire of Nigerians?
No, I don't think we're going to miss that. This structure also is part of the question of fiscal federalism, the question of are we going to move from where we are today back to where we were before? You understand? The question of do we create more states or do we compress the states into fewer, states and so forth? So all those things are part of what everybody wants to look at. And I really don't blame people. It's obvious to every Nigerian now that decisions taken at the center affect you in fundamental ways. And therefore, you must be involved and you must think about how that decision affects you. Poverty is rising, and social services have broken down. And we are seeing that infrastructural decay is everywhere. So everybody, feels it in some way. And so when you want people to talk about it, of course they are so interested in that. I don't think we're going to miss out on anything.
The point I was trying to make is,
Yes.
Wouldn't it have been easier if a referendum was the way to go about it?
Yeah, but then if you're going to do a referendum, you're also going to still have to synthesize what you are going to bring out to a referendum. You won't just do a referendum on everything. It must have to be on specific things. And a referendum, of course, a referendum of more than 4 or 5 will be meaningless. Because how many people will, have the, how do you put it now, the way and manner of deciding to tick, assuming you have 104 questions.
But
No,
he's
it's kind of
suggesting
difficult.
here that can happen at the final stage of the process.
Precisely. I understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying a referendum is bad. I'm only saying that it was not, maybe it should have come at the beginning when the military were trying to bring in a constitution to Nigerians. But the constitution that we have, under which we operate, does not have any provision for that. So the only way we can get a referendum in is to bring in into the constitution.
Okay,
Otherwise, what you have really is anarchy. Because if you walk away from the constitutional provision, the Grundnorm, and go outside of it, then what do you
breaking
have?
the law.
Of course.
Okay,
You
but
open the
what
door
about
to all
the
manners of
doctrine of
things.
necessity? I mean, at a certain point, we had to bring up the doctrine of necessity. The National Assembly brought it up that this had to be done,
Yes.
just so that the then acting president can be sworn in as president. I mean,
Yes.
is it not? Can't the doctrine of necessity be applied in this case?
Yes,
If
but we had a nation that was drifting and heading to the rocks. We had a sitting vice president. And there were just some, obstacle that was not caused by the Constitution, but was caused by those who were trying to exploit a loophole in the Constitution. There is no exploitation here.
but there's a loophole.
Well, no, it's not a loophole. There is no such provision